Welcome to Market Momentum, where we break down the real signals behind all the market noise. So, it's happened. The headline that's been on every single investor's mind is now a reality. The US government has shut down. Okay, let's dive right into what's going on here. The immediate question for all of us is pretty simple. What does this actually mean for our stocks, for precious metals, and yeah, for crypto assets too? So, for our first section, we're going to separate the common fear from what's actually happening in the market. Because, the real story here might not be what you think. Look, while all the headlines are screaming about a market crash, that's really just noise. The real signal, the thing that truly matters, is what this tells the US Federal Reserve. And history gives us a pretty clear roadmap for this kind of thing. Yeah, shutdowns can cause a little dip at first, but they almost never change the market's long-term direction. It's less of a roadblock and more of a speed bump. The market's main trend almost always takes over again once the political dust settles. Okay, so what does this mean for the big US indices we're all watching? The S&P 500, the Nasdaq. Let's take a closer look. So if you look at the S&P 500, you might see a bit of indecisiveness, maybe some sideways action, but the foundation? It's still solid. That underlying upward trend is totally intact. There are no major alarm bells going off in the stock market just because of this shutdown. And this brings us to a really interesting point, a kind of counterintuitive strategy. The longer a shutdown drags on, the more fear it creates in the market. But for a smart investor, that fear could actually be a buying opportunity, not a reason to hit the sell button. And now we get to the most important part, the chain reaction that we really need to understand. This is the core idea of our whole analysis today. So here it is. This is the chain reaction that matters way more than any headline. A shutdown means temporary layoffs, right? Which means the upcoming jobs data will look weaker. And that weak data puts a ton of pressure on the Fed to step in and support the economy, making interest rate cuts a whole lot more likely. That right there? That's the real story. And this isn't happening in a vacuum either. The shutdown is basically pouring gasoline on an existing fire. We already saw recent data revisions that showed the job market wasn't nearly as strong as we thought. The shutdown just makes that signal to the Fed even louder. So, how does all this play into precious metals? Let's build a clear strategy for gold and silver and maybe bust a few common myths along the way. A question I hear all the time is this. Is the government shutdown the reason we're seeing this huge rally in gold right now? And the answer is just a very clear, very simple no. These are two separate things happening at the same time. It's so important not to connect them when they aren't, because that's exactly how you make big strategic mistakes. So our strategy here is really straightforward and disciplined. If you already own gold or silver, that's fantastic. Hold on to your positions. But it is way too risky to start chasing this rally and buying new positions at these highs. This is where that timeless wisdom really comes into play. After a huge run-up like we've seen, the game changes. It becomes about preserving your capital. Chasing a rally now is probably the best way to forget rule number one and give back those gains you worked so hard for. All right, finally, let's pivot over to crypto. What are the signals telling us in the crypto markets right now? Because it's a very, very different picture. And this is where things get really interesting. Unlike that hands-off approach for precious metals, the technical charts for the crypto space are actually looking pretty positive, pretty constructive. We're seeing signs of strength pretty much across the board. It's not just one coin. You've got Bitcoin and Ethereum breaking through key technical levels. And maybe more importantly, the total market cap is climbing. This suggests a broader, healthier trend could be forming. Okay, so let's put all the pieces together. What's the simple, strategic plan we can walk away with after looking at all this? So here it is, the main point. You have to look past the shutdown panic. The headline is just noise. The real signal is what it means for Fed policy, because that's what's really driving these assets. The stock market's uptrend is holding up, precious metals are a hold, not a buy, and crypto is actually showing some positive technical signs. It's all about that chain reaction. And that's all for today. Thanks so much for joining our channel. Your subscription and likes would be really appreciated.